I never expected the day would come when I would walk away from my own marriage. Yet there I was, standing in the stillness of our kitchen in Portland, fingers wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. My name is Adrian, I'm 38, and for 14 years I had been married to Isla, a woman whose laughter once felt like sunlight pouring into every corner of my life. When we first met, she was radiant. She had bright, curious eyes, a smile that seemed to lift the air around her, and a way of turning the simplest moments into something meaningful. I was nothing like her. I preferred routine, structure, the comfort of knowing what comes next. She used to tell me she loved that about me, that I grounded her. I believed her. Those early years were beautiful. We took spontaneous drives along the Oregon coast, stayed up talking until dawn, teased each other endlessly, and shared a closeness that made the rest of the world feel far away. I can still picture her leaning her head against my shoulder on quiet nights, laughing at jokes that weren't even funny, laughing just because we were happy. But slowly things changed. The shift wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like a slow dimming of light. She began coming home later and later, worn out and distracted. I kept telling myself it was work, stress, life, but deep down I knew something was slipping out of our hands. Affection became rare. We spoke only about chores and bills. It felt like we had quietly drifted into separate worlds without admitting it. I tried to pull us back together, planned dinners, cooked her favorite meals, handled responsibilities without complaint. I believed that if I pushed hard enough, I could fix everything. But love isn't repaired by one person's effort alone. I started noticing the small signals, the way she sighed when I walked in, how her eyes avoided mine, the way her hand would fall away from my touch as if by reflex. I'll never forget our anniversary that year. I set the table with candles, roses, music, the kind of simple romance we once loved. She walked in, glanced at everything, and laughed. Not the warm laugh I'd cherished. This was dismissive, sharp, cutting. "Adrian, seriously? This is too much," she said before walking away. I sat there alone, staring at the empty chair and finally understanding that the woman I loved had become a stranger. The moment everything unraveled came on a rainy Sunday. She called me into the living room and told me she needed space. Space with no endpoint. She said we felt more like tired friends than partners. I didn't argue or plead. I simply nodded. If she needed distance, I wasn't going to trap her in something she no longer felt. I moved out soon after. The first weeks were heavy. The silence in my new place felt like it had weight. But over time, something unexpected happened. I began to feel lighter. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends, started enjoying mornings again. For the first time in years, I felt like myself. That's when I met Nora. We crossed paths during a volunteer project. She was thoughtful, warm, and real in a way that didn't demand anything from me. Being around her wasn't an escape. It was an addition to a life I had already begun rebuilding. With her, things grew naturally without pressure or expectations. I let her in because I wanted to, not because I needed healing. Even so, Isla would drift into my thoughts now and then, not with resentment but with a quiet acceptance. She had been an important part of my life, but the lesson she left behind was even more important. Love only thrives when both people show up for it. About a year later, through a mutual friend, I heard that Isla wanted to see me. My first instinct was to ignore it. I had put the past to rest. But curiosity tugged at me, and we agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. She arrived late, looking different. Not older exactly, just softer, quieter. Some of her confidence had faded, replaced by something like vulnerability. Our conversation began cautiously, but then she opened up. She told me she felt alone, that leaving hadn't given her the freedom she expected. She said she missed not just our marriage but the consistency, the care, the presence I had given so freely. I didn't interrupt. I didn't remind her of the times I sat alone waiting for her, or of the nights I tried to reach for her and found nothing in return. Her words were enough. Eventually she looked at me and said, "You're different now. Happier. I wish I had valued you more." I nodded, not out of pride but out of peace. I had moved on, not to prove anything to her, but because I finally understood my own worth. Her laugh at the end was gentle, tinged with regret, like she was finally seeing the truth she had ignored for so long. And in that moment, I realized that though she had once meant everything to me, she was no longer someone I needed in my life. When we said goodbye, I walked out of that cafe feeling a calm I had never known in our marriage. True love, I had learned, only means something when both people nurture it. The past remained a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. Now, when her name occasionally comes up, I don't feel anger or triumph, just a quiet understanding. I lived fully, loved sincerely, lost honestly, and in the end, found the one thing I didn't know I had misplaced: myself.